last time on Lawful Stupid, we said our goodbyes. All the boys went separate directions. And that was the ending to season 1 of Lawful Stupid.
Yeah, I didn't know that we were doing seasons at first.
Neither did the rest of the boys. We kind of just made it up on the fly, and it just fits. It fits really good with what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so, because we think the way we're going to be doing the next story bit, we're going to tell some stories about what happens now and what happens between season 1 and season 2. So this is going to be the first of 3, first of 4, actually first of 4 this time, where we'll have the boys, and then we'll have an episode literally just me monologuing and talking about the story, talking about the world, just to give you guys some background. So
yeah, and you're not gonna let us listen to it beforehand.
Yeah, that's
gonna be a new thing.
Yeah, that's the other thing we're doing to the boys. They don't get to hear the episodes until they release as well. So they will be in the dark for each other's. They kind of know concepts, but they won't actually know what it sounds like or the details. So
yeah, like we brainstormed a little bit together, but as far as like finite details and like actual indecisions, no clue.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. But are you ready to see what happens to Rowan?
Yes, I'm very ready.
So it's been 6 moons since Rowan has said goodbye to Atlas and his dear friend Kristoff, and he's traveled from town to town, and he's been collecting stories. He has been providing gold and bread and shelter in exchange for people's stories. And why don't you kind of give Rowan's thought process and ethos behind his new endeavor to collect stories?
Oh, well, I mean, with Wen and collecting all the stories, it just kind of makes sense for him to be like, all right, I'm doing these things, it doesn't feel like quite enough. And there's just a lot to do. And then also, like, Rowan's always felt like he had a story to tell, even if he didn't. And there's probably other people that would have the same feeling, but he could kind of validate that and just really let everyone know, like, your story's important to at least me, if nothing else. And then he can repackage that and retell it for money.
And so Rowan's been doing that for 6 moons. And he's mostly stayed in Orenthal this whole time, hitting some of these smaller towns. But tonight was different. Tonight he found himself at the entrance of Riverside. And whether he knew he was headed that direction or whether that was just the next town that the road took him on, he found himself in Riverside. And I think he goes from building to building and shop to shop, and the town is almost deserted, it feels like, to be in the middle of not in the middle of the night, but it's to be afternoon, to be dinner time, essentially. You don't really find anyone until you meet, or until you walk into the sheriff's hall, essentially. And when you walk into the sheriff's hall, because it's the only building with lights on, when you go through that first door, you're greeted with swords, shields, spears, and it's essentially the whole town held up, and in the middle of it, you see very few children, but the rest of the town gathered in one building to guard them.
Oh, hey everybody.
And
go ahead. What's going on?
And these faces of fear and anger, they roll back. Almost a sigh of relief falls across them, and Henry steps forward and he says, "Rowan, is that you?"
Henry, yes.
Ah, my boy. What are you doing here?
Just passing through, and I remembered you guys were here, so I thought I would check in.
That's awfully kind of you, but it's late. You should come in. It's not safe outside. Not at night.
What happens at night?
You don't... the word hasn't spread of the vampires?
There's vampires.
Yes. Almost 7 months ago, children, they went missing, and 7 months ago, children, they went missing, and, well, shortly after that, people started dying. We started finding people bloodless, and it didn't take long for us to find all of the vampires. Well, I find that they were here, anyway.
But it's safe to say this is the first time I've ever heard about missing children.
Okay.
It's safe to say this is the first time.
And Henry kind of looks confused at that. You seem pretty insistent on that, but okay.
Facts are facts, but you found the vampire? Like, you know where they are?
Yeah, we know exactly where they are. Do you remember Senna Firestone?
Yeah.
She's their vampire. She's their, maybe queen? But that's not the right word, surely. Hive mistress? I'm not good with these words.
The main... The one that you gotta kill to get the other ones to not be a vampire anymore.
Yes, that's what we believe. They're all around her home, and that's where they sleep. We went during the day a couple months ago to try and kill her, and we lost several people.
Why don't we just... You know what? I'm a friend. I talked with her before. It'll be fine. I'll just go see what's up with that, right?
I don't... that seems really dangerous, Rowan. They are not friendly to the living.
Do you have silver I can borrow for, like, a day?
And
a night?
And Henry says, I might have something perfect for you back at my shop.
Well, let's go.
And Henry says, okay, but we must be quick. It's really not safe. And he departs from you, and you see him like hug Teresa, and both of them could not be more worried about him making this trip with you. But you know, he gives her love and bids her farewell and comes back to you and says, we must be quick.
Well, then let's get going. Hi, Atlas's mom.
And she gives you a concerned wave, and the two of you depart. And you both sprint, because Henry sets the pace and he full on sprints to his shop. And this half restaurant, half blacksmith shop, you bolt through the doors, and as you guys get through, he shuts the door and locks it and says, it's here somewhere. And he begins rooting around his shop for whatever he's looking for.
I'm watching the door windows?
Oh yeah, two windows by the door, yeah, for sure.
What are you looking for, Henry?
And he says, it was ceremonial mainly, but I have a silver weapon here somewhere. Hold on. And he begins rooting through, and he comes back to you, and he's got like this, almost a set of daggers. They're like, they look more like, not shurikens, it's not stilettos. What is that? What are those throwing knives that ninjas use? I can't remember but it's literally like small hilt, and then it's like, they're almost arrows. They're almost arrowhead type knives. And
you thinking like the Naruto kunai?
Yeah, exactly like that, right? And I mean, he hands you 4 of these like silver knives, and he says, I made these for a noble, but as the town's been, I haven't had a chance to leave. I haven't felt safe enough to leave to deliver them.
Then I'll make sure that I bring them back in more or less the same condition. I'll run with you back to there, and then I'll head to Sinless, and everything will be fine by the morning. I guarantee, probably. I don't guarantee it, but hopefully.
And Henry claps you on the shoulder, and you kind of stumble a little bit because he's a big, brawny man, and he says, I can see why Atlas found you to be a friend. Have you seen my boy?
I have a lot.
Oh, how is he?
He's good.
He doesn't feel any reassured by that, but he doesn't call you out on anything either. He says,
physically, he's good. He's got some heart troubles with the ladies going on.
I knew he would be a heartbreaker. And I think the 2 of you bolt back to the sheriff's hall. And so he steps in, and you depart from him. And one of the things you notice about these kunai is, you're kind of sizing them up. You notice that they'll fit in your barrel just perfectly. And so you head out of town, because if you remember correctly, Sinla's house is outside of town, so there's a little bit of a walk. And do me a favor and just go ahead and roll a d20 with a wisdom modifier, because this is going to be like a survival check.
Well, it's a nat 20.
Okay, this is going to be narratively perfect. So as you exit the town, it's almost like it's a no holds barred. No
holds barred.
There you go. Well, that's what we're going to say. It's a no holds barred. Because you're quickly approached by 3 children vampires, and they're headed to attack you. What would you like to do?
But they're not mindless monsters, right? I could be like, hail vampirelings.
You can tell that these 3 are a little erratic, almost like they haven't eaten in a while, but you're right, they're not mindless monsters, but they're definitely hungry. And they're kind of growling as they approach you, and one of them says, Sir, just a small bite. A small bite's all I need.
Well, I know you're too young to understand this. If you fucking bite me, I'm going to have to kill you.
And when you say that, it just provokes him, and he leaps at you.
I'm gonna take a pot shot with the gun then.
Okay, yeah. So you fire off this blast, and it strikes this child vampire down, and the other 2 in turn leap at you, and I think you instinctively just move from one target to the next, and boom again, and the 3 drop. And as you're walking and getting closer, you're getting more of these erratic children vampires, and you have to keep putting more of them down. And it's not until you get closer to the cabin that you encounter 2 more vampires, older in their teenage years, and you can tell they're not nearly as hungry, right? And as you get closer, they both say, or one of them says, What are you doing here? So close to our home?
I've come to talk with Sinla.
And who are you?
A dashing gentleman in a large red hat.
You look tasty, that's for sure.
Well, that's very true, and oddly not the first time I've heard it today.
And you see her kind of lick her lips, and more importantly, her fangs. And she looks at the boy next to her and says, Brother, give Mother the news that there's a delicious-looking elf in a hat here to see him. And the brother kind of looks annoyed, almost like he gives his face like, if you eat him without me, we're gonna have a problem. And so he goes in and kind of delivers the news. And the boy and Sinla step out from the door, and Sinla recognizes you, kind of. And she says, "Why do you look familiar?"
Because I was just here weeks ago.
No, I promise you weren't.
Months ago? I was here once. Time has passed since, and you gave me and a tiefling and a giant white orc a gem or something.
Yes, now I remember. Svan's pets, is that right?
Yes, except for the pets part. Well, Kristoff is kind of in love with Svan or something. I don't know. It's a weird relationship, but yes.
So what brings you back here? I haven't heard from Svan in many moons.
Oh, there was just a town of demons. It was really annoying.
That sounds terrible, but why have you returned to Riverside?
Well, I was just saying hi to Atlas's parents while he's doing God knows what. I know they worry. And then I find them all holed up, and all the kids are gone, and then they say that you had something to do with it.
Oh, those are my children now.
But they were someone else's children before.
Finders, keepers.
Then, if that's the case, then I have refound them, and they are now mine.
I'm sorry, you can't have my children, no matter how delicious you look.
Would you be willing to make a wager?
And what possibly do you have that I could want?
I have, right here in this hand, your life. I will give this to you for those children.
And all three of them like snicker as you say that. You must be lost, little elf, because we do not fear you.
Oh, it's really sad when you're too dumb to know. And I'll just start pulling out some kunais.
And all three of them hiss as they see the silver like dance in the light of the moon, in the light of Maliv. For those of you who know that's the name of the moon. And she says, "You came here to kill us."
Came here to make you an offer, which you just refused, as I'm loading one of the daggers into the gun.
And she hisses and says, "Kill him!" And the other two rush at you.
Shoot the dagger at one of them with hopes.
Yeah, go ahead and roll a dexterity range attack, rather. Not dexterity, but a range attack.
Okay. That is like a 15.
All right. So the boy runs up to you, and he's like the first to get there with the girl back to his right. And you fire off that first shot like an eldritch blast with the kunai shoved in the front of it. And it's propelled by your blast, and the first one just shoots right through his chest, and you watch as he like explodes into ashes. And the girl like leaps forward and just like pounces on top of you. Do me a favor and do a strength saving throw.
Not a good. 17 with...
Yeah, that's good. So she like chomps at you,
16. And
you like put the kunai at her teeth, like because you're just like panic and put the silver in front of you. And as she bites, she hisses. And when she bounces backwards, I think you just shove that kunai into her chest, and it explodes, and ash and dust falls all over you. And as you're like getting back to your feet, Sinla's rushing forward.
Oh, I try to shove the one in my hand in the gun again, and like deep breath, steady aim.
Do me a favor and do a ranged attack, please.
Much better. 17.
Yeah, so she runs up on you, and you bring up your gun again, and fire, and it hits, and it goes through her, and she doesn't quite explode, but you start to see her peeling away, like you didn't get a direct hit, and so then she's like stumbling at you, trying to stay on her feet, like still like clawing, both hands coming up and then swiping down, like as she's getting closer and closer, she's just trying to get her hands on you. As you can see, like parts of her shoulder and her ribs, they're just like burning away as that poison or that silver eats at her.
Sinla, you had your chance. I thought we were friends. It was a nice chat the time that we had.
You gotta pay for this. And she like almost like falls to her knees right as she's like right in front of you, and she like reaches up with both of her claws to grab you.
I just take one step back.
And she like stumbles forward, and she's on her hands and her knees, and you just kind of watch as the silver eats away at her slowly. I think a leg disappears first, and then she's like trying to crawl and trying to get up and trying to get to you, and you just watch as the poison of the silver just eats away at her, and she dissipates into a pile of ash.
Can I check on... Oh shit, he blew up. The girl also blew up. Yep. Are there any kids in my wake laying there?
So we're gonna smash cut to the next event, and I'll kind of walk you out of this one. So you make your trip back to the hall, and you notice that there's kids around. Like, when you traveled here, not all of the vampires were brave enough to attack you, especially when seeing other children get dispatched by you. And so as you're walking back, you're seeing these like homely looking kids, and they're normal, and they approach you shyly, especially considering they just saw you kill other vampires, and they're not vampires anymore. And I think you like kind of bring them into your fold as you march them back to the sheriff's hall. And the people of Riverside are ever grateful that you dispatched Sinla and cleared the town of the vampires. And from that day since, the town of Riverside made that day a holiday for you.
Awesome! Do they make a statue?
They don't. But every year that holiday comes to pass, every day, they do a small festival where essentially they go to every house and put like lights, like not lights, but like candles and lanterns. And so for the night that you saved them, they always burn through the night, so there's just no darkness in town.
Oh, that's the best holiday. This is great.
Yep.
Good things happen.
Yep. And so more time passes as Rowan adventures, and I think sometimes he strays out of the lines of Orenthal, but I think most of his adventures stay within Orenthal. It's a relatively normal piece of the land, and through these times, through his adventures, he's consistently had this caravan that he's built, where he's told stories and people have come, and he's built this reputation for having stories and always being welcoming. And he always tells people, if you're ever in need, if you have a story to tell, look for the purple fire. And on this particular night, the wagons are circled and the purple fire is roaring, and you've already done a night's worth of stories, and everyone who has chosen to be in your caravan has already gone to sleep. And you hear the familiar like whistling that you've heard many nights before, and it's almost as if you can predict what's going to happen because it's happened before. You hear her say, "Rowan, it's good to see you again."
Cecilia, what do I owe the pleasure?
And Cecilia does like she's done the several visits before that you guys have had. She sits across the fire from you on one of the many seats, and she picks up somebody else's drink. and over these visits, you guys have been more friendly, and she like takes down the bottom part of her armor, and so you can kind of see, or her mask, her helmet, so she can drink, and she drinks from this cup, and you just see this like beautifully young girl under the mask, right? Like, because you can see her lips and her cheekbones and the upper part of her neck, which prior to these last few visits and you've never really seen anything under her armor other than the fact that she had like long hair, right? Like that was the only thing that really gave you indication that she was a woman.
Yeah.
And she says, well, like every other visit, Rowan, where is my artifact?
I don't know where your artifact is. I know where mine is and where it stays.
Rowan, don't make me take that loot from you.
It's always down to business, isn't it? You can't just come and be like, hey, how was your day? And then I would tell you about how great my day was. And then you could come and tell me about how great your time has been killing people for their artifacts.
And she sighs and says, you're right. How was your day, Rowan?
It was great. I told so many stories. And if I hear one more story about somebody going fishing and finding a fucking fish that's this big every single time, I'm gonna put my hands in this flame. I'm just gonna be done with it. But other than that, just great. How was your day?
And she kind of laughs, and you've heard her laugh a few times, but a handful of times. And she says, not great and not terrible either. But all the same, we should get down to those brass tacks. If you must put your hands in the fire, go right ahead, because then that loot would be mine. You would have no need for it if you can't play.
Oh, you can still play a lute without a hand. Even two.
It's okay. I have nothing for that. I don't. How on earth would you play without hands?
A girl's got to have her secrets.
She kind of like, you kind of see her like look back and forth, almost of trying to like do some like complex math in her head. And she says, okay, listen.
I mage hand pluck a couple strings while like biting my finger and looking.
And as she watches that, she kind of like the light bulb pops and she goes, oh, but how would you cast that without hands?
There's tons of ways to cast things. Magic's magic.
Yeah, I think that's what got us all into this more than anything else. And she says, have you heard of a dwarf named Axel?
I have. I go up and I go get a pitcher and like refill the cup for him, put like a plate of snacks in it. Like, I do, I remember.
And
he's a big old idiot.
She says, not anymore, he's not.
He's not an idiot?
Well, I don't know. Can you be an idiot when you're dead?
Yes.
Oh.
If he died doing something dumb, he's an idiot.
Well, he crossed me, so he's still an idiot.
Oh, good. So you've got the hammer then?
No. The hammer's destroyed.
Well, it's gone. Whatever.
Yes.
You got it, though.
Yes, that's what we do. We destroy them, Rowan.
As you should. They're too dangerous to be around.
And she like looks at your loot when you say that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Too dangerous. So anytime you want to get rid of that loot.
Oh, not right now. Look at all the good things I'm doing. The food you're eating, everything you're drinking, all these stories, the goodness. Look at the good it's doing. It's not hurting anyone.
It's hurting everyone. Well, where are your friends?
Well, Kristoff is probably at school, And Atlas is definitely probably made up with his ghost girlfriend now. Like, they're probably great.
And where did that loot leave Oxbay?
Saved from demons.
Would they have ever come in the first place had you not brought that loot to it?
I mean, who's to really say, considering that the door was opened by a key from someone who was already in Oxbane?
You think those things happen without some type of magnetism? Those loots, those artifacts, they bring nothing but trouble, I promise you. They were created for war, and that's just what they'll bring.
Could say that. Like, can instruments of war be used for better things? Are we just gonna throw soldiers away when they're done with their war?
And she says, no, I suppose not. But we both know that soldiers have gone stir crazy and cause quite the problem when there's no wars to be fought.
It's true.
And for the first time that you guys have been sitting together, she seemed almost soft towards you. Every other time has been business as usual, and she's never really engaged in you. You've typically been able to kind of like laugh her out of there and get her to lose focus, and she sits down next to you. Like, she stands up, walks around the fire, and she sits down next to you, and she says, there's something I must warn you about. There's something you need to know, Rowan. If you're not going to give up that artifact, I have to warn you.
Please.
There are others that bear artifacts, and they pay a cost. They pay a cost unlike one that I can describe. And I don't want that for you. I do wish you would give me that loot.
See, as much as I wish I could. For right now, look at all these sleeping faces. Look at the peace. How many of them might not have even had a good night's sleep had I not been here? For now, their peace of mind is worth whatever price I pay. That's on me. That's what it is to be a real hero.
And she kind of sighs, and you can see on her mouth that like it's like that is just stressing her out. And she says, okay, this may be our last encounter, Rowan, because I'm not sure that the Reclaimers will allow me to keep tabs on you without, and then she kind of like looks away, without taking the loot from you. And I imagine you're not going to give that up without a fight, and I don't know why, but I can't bear to take you.
What if I take the strings off of it, and you say that you destroyed it and you brought the strings as proof?
And she laughs, and she says, if only it were that easy. When artifacts are destroyed, they leave behind something. They leave behind this essence, and it's, if you know what the torrent looks like, if you've ever seen it before, it's like that, but it's corrupt, it's twisted, they say these are toys of gods, but the gods have made them their toys. They're not their makers, despite what they would have you believe. And she, like, for the first time, takes off her, she snaps her helmet apart and, like, takes it off. And to Rowan's surprise, it's Rosalie?
Uh-oh.
Is that how you pronounce her name?
Rosalind?
Rosalind. It's Rosalind.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks back at you, and you remember Rosalind from your past, and you remember the way she always looked at you, and it's not like that. her eyes, like, just look over someone like she doesn't want to kill, and she says, I'm not supposed to show you my face, but I wanted to tell you bye, because there will be somebody to take my place, because we can't let this artifact go unchecked, but I'm biased, and I can't do my job.
It's a lot to unpack. How'd you become a fucking reclaimer?
I've always been a reclaimer.
What? Is that where you went?
What do you mean, where did I go?
Didn't you went off with your dad to, like, learn about fungus people or something?
Rowan, I don't know what you're talking about.
What? Your name's Rosalind, not Cecilia. You know this, right?
My name is Cecilia Rowan.
No, get out.
Out of where? We're sitting outside, Rowan.
Nuh-uh. So, okay, you've always been a reclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you come from?
What do you mean? I was born in the Reclaimers Hall. I was born
Where's
there,
that?
and it was... nice try, Rowan.
Nah. Did you ever spend a part of your youth in some islands, maybe Falinas?
No, never. I trained to be a Reclaimer all my life.
And you remember all of it, vividly.
I don't remember everything, but who remembers every memory? But yes, I remember my childhood and growing up with the Reclaimers and training for... Why do you have all these questions, Rowan?
Did you go crazy when I broke your heart?
And she kind of like blushes when you say that, and she says, "You didn't break my heart."
Well, that's good. I always worried about that a little bit.
We've never...
Oh,
and
we did.
she gets like super flustered, and she says, "And this is why I can't do my job. I shouldn't." And she like stands up and like marches to the other side of the fire to like put distance. You're not supposed to have feelings for your target.
Are you saying?
I'm not saying anything, Rowan.
Oh, your eyes already said them. You don't even have to put words to it, I know.
And you can like, she's like putting her fists at her side, she's like clenching them. She's like, "This isn't funny. I came to warn you. The next Reclaimer, they're going to take the loot."
They're going to try to take the loot.
Well, I hope they're not successful. It's these meetings with you. I've really enjoyed them.
Me too. Except for the one time that you knocked us out.
Well, you all deserved it, and I should have killed you. I should have taken the loot then.
Probably should have, yeah.
And she kind of chuckles and she says, "This is goodbye, Rowan."
Oh, there's no such thing as goodbyes. I'm really bad at them. Please don't.
And she like puts the helmet back on and snaps it into place, and puts the lower faceplate piece back on, covering herself entirely, and says, "Then we won't say goodbye. And I hope you give that loot over to the next Reclaimer. And I hope you don't waste your life."
No, I'd never waste my life. And I can tell you right now that the only thing I'm giving that other Reclaimer is a fucking unmarked grave when he tries to lay a hand on my fucking loot.
Well, I hope it's not as bad as I think it will be. Rowan, be careful.
Oh, you know I won't be careful.
Then I wish you the best of luck.
It's okay, Cecilia. We'll still see each other soon. You just wait.
And she departs from the caravan. And the view shifts. We find ourselves in a great hall with gears, sprogs,
and other mechanical contraptions that our boys in the world has never really experienced. And we see Cecilia in her reclaimer garb, and she's standing in front of another reclaimer who's in very similar armor, but that reclaimer's armor is ornate. It has seen battle, and that reclaimer stands at least a foot taller than our Cecilia. And they exchange heated words. Words we can't hear, muffled words. And the other reclaimer strikes Cecilia. She goes down to a knee. We see her look up, more mumbled words. He strikes her again. And again, she mumbles. And again, he strikes her. And again, she rebukes. And he strikes her again, and this time she falls to the ground completely. And as she lay on her face, we hear mumbled words. And this other form kicks Cecilia while on the ground. And just as our view fades, we hear the words, "If you can't get him, then I'll get him and that loot. They'll be mine, and I'll leave nothing left of that surly earth, no matter how you feel, Cecilia."
And your story doesn't end there. More time has passed and more months, and the name of Rowan Legato is spreading. And every town, it's almost like they wait for you to come through and tell your stories and tell your tales. And I think at some point you've started putting on plays with your caravans, and you just have this way of like entrancing everyone with your magic and your stories, and people have come to join, and it's almost like you're presenting this theater every time you go into town, and towns just like beg for you to be a part of it. And that leads up to your next event, where you are called and summoned to a noble's home in Uri, and on the edges of Uri. And this home, it has big walls and guards, and whoever it is just making lots of money, and you don't know who it is. You just know that the job pays well, and it can literally afford another year of expenses without you ever having to take a job. And that was enticing enough for you to at least meet with the person. And your caravan parks inside of this giant castle almost, and you're escorted through these beautiful marble walls and these ruby templates of like gold and emeralds and diamonds, and like pictures are made of gems, right? And you come to this throne room, and 100 feet from the doors that you enter, this long red carpet and these marble floors and these expensive like lanterns and like tabards are like all over the walls. And 100 feet away you see this ornate throne, and as you get closer you recognize Eckenbar to be sitting on the throne.
Eckenbar?
And as you like shout that, Eckenbar sitting with like this like crown on his head, but it's definitely more like an accessory than it is a crown, because while he's royalty, he's not pushing too many boundaries, and it's like sideways. And he says, "That's Count Eckenbar, Rowan."
Well, and I give him a little tip of the hat. But I didn't know you were a count.
Well, not everyone's name can travel quite as far as yours, Mr. Legato.
Fortunately, that is true. I have heard of you, though.
All good things, I hope.
Yes, all good things.
You're just as charming as before. I'm sure you got my letter well?
I did.
Excellent.
How could I not at least come and say hi to an old friend?
Yes, well, it's quite a business opportunity. I want to pay you a king's ransom, or a count's ransom in this regard. I want your show to play at my gala tomorrow night.
I don't see why not. Definitely sounds something we could do.
Excellent. It will be very important that in this gala, it will be my coming to royalty. You will tell the story of Count Eckenbar and how he comes from the muck of the valleys and the alleys of the city and the crime that I was forced to do. And you will tell my story and how I became the Count and how I will soon be much, much more. And of course, I will act in this play, of course, because no one can play me, but it will be wonderful. The gala, they will love it.
Yeah, if that's what you want. Usually, most nobility like to glaze over their shadowy past.
Oh no, I will act it out on stage with you. We will tell this story together.
Alright, that's interesting enough. Usually I'm a solo act and I like disguise self as Eckenbar.
And he kind of smiles and he says, no need for such small tricks. I really just need the name Rowan attached to this. Because your stories, they travel far and wide, and people accept them as facts. And I'm going to pay you so much gold to just do as I say.
See, when you phrase it like that, doesn't sound like a good story.
Oh no, it's going to be the best story. For it will be my story. And you will have the honor and the privilege of telling it.
I think you have this the wrong way. My name spreads far and wide. You have the privilege of me playing at your party.
And he kind of like snickers and he says, you must have been with these... And he looks around and there's like servants everywhere. These peasants. Much too often. Listen, I pay you the gold. You do as I say.
No, I don't think you understand. I'm not for sale. I will do a business exchange where I, give you a service and then you give me money for it. But this isn't where you own me.
And he stands up and he says, everyone has a price, and I'm sure yours can be bought as easily, Rowan. It's cute we're playing this game, but I'm sure by the end of the day you'll bow to me.
Bow to you? I don't know if you know this, but I don't bow for anyone.
And he kind of like walks down the steps and you see these like two guards kind of walking with him and he says, oh, you'll bow all right.
Is that what you think?
Oh, that's what I know, Rowan. You have not changed that much. You will bow like they all do.
That's really cute. That you think me, Rowan Legato, would bow to anyone, let alone you? A fucking slumlord that calls himself Count? Me, who's freed villages, provides for the poor. I don't even fucking bow to Wen. We're partners in this. And I talk to him on the regular. And if you think you're even close to on par with him, to whom I still don't bow, you're fucking insane.
And as you say this, like, the guards next to him kind of like look shocked. And you can see out of the peripheral of your vision that like the servants are like either staring agape or looking away and doing whatever their task is supposed to be doing. And Eckenbar says, he gets real close, he's like within 4 or 5 feet of you and says, I suggest you bow, Rowan.
I fought through a city of demons to close a door. You think I won't kill 2 guards to pull out your tongue?
and he says, "That's something I'd like to see you try."
And I take off my coat, and I put it on my unseen servant. And give it the old, like... All right. Guess I'm killing a count. It'll be a good fucking story. I pull out my gun.
Do me a favor and go ahead and roll a dexterity range attack.
That is like a 27.
All right, perfect. So I think you don't straight up murder these three. I think it's like this flash of attacks, right? Like I think you attack the first guard on the left and with your pistol, and the second attack as well using the Eldritch Blast, right? And they go flying backwards. Like they're not dead, but like they're also not meant to fight somebody of your caliber, right? Like there's just a distinct power level between you. And so when you blast them backwards, I think you like step forward and just kick the knee of Ekenbar, and like you just hear it snap, and he gets put on his knees in front of you, and you hear him, "Ah! Ah!" And he's at his knees in front of you.
This is what your hubris did. Now you had to bow before me. And now you have to deal with the fact that me and my troop are leaving. Your party will suck.
And I think as like you're leaving, he's shouting at you, and he's just saying like, "Come back here! No one walks away from Ekenbar."
Just give him like the wave of the hand, like brushing him off.
And you hear like the muttering and like the soft laughter of like servants as you exit the castle. And your story spreads. Like a story you've never told, right? Like that's a story that you have humbly kept to yourself, but the servants and the guards, they give you the name The Unbowed. And everyone tells that story, and I think much later, you're sitting around this caravan, and somebody comes to you the story with the Unbowed, right? And and as they're telling you this story, like you still graciously pay them gold for this story, despite it being your story. And we move from this event. And
I also imagine like the number of guards ends up going up every time it gets retold.
Yeah, of course. Oh, absolutely. The number of guards goes up. I think the level of applause gets bigger. The event itself gets bigger. It becomes like Ekenbar's coronation and how it's super important to his realm, and it gets like hugely out of space for what it actually was, and that like Ekenbar himself was gonna like force you to, disband your caravan, and you just weren't having that. It becomes this elaborate tale.
Yes.
And we see wagons, and we see these tarped, covered wooden wagons, almost a caravan of sorts. And we see the familiar loot in the hands of our most beautiful boy, and he's playing a song, and you can see around the caravan these wagons are kind of encircled, and you see them playing music and songs, and Rowan's telling a story to these like small children, and I think it goes a little something like, "It's your turn," or I edit it out.
Okay, you're frozen on my screen too, so
No!
I can't. And that's when I said, "Get out of my room," to which he replied, "Get out of my mouth!"
And the three kids kind of look concerned, and you see like this elderly lady go, "Oh, I think that's enough. Time to go to bed," and rushes them off. And I think you tell more stories to the adults left at the fire. Yep. And there's stories that entrance people. There's stories that makes people cry. And as you're talking and telling this story, you almost hear like this rustling in the woods. And something to note, and something that is always different about this caravan, is your bonfires are always purple. They are purple in color, and they always spark, and they're always, it's almost like when you tell a story, they tell a story, and someone you've never seen sits down next to you as you're telling the story, and he's a man with a short red beard, and he's got long red hair pulled back into a ponytail, and he's wearing a traveler's cloak that is like this brown, and it's nice, and it's, you can tell it's thick, like it is not meant for decoration, it's meant for more, and
like with 2 C's thick.
And he sits down next to you and says, you must be that. You must be he who never kneels, and he who never bows.
That would be me. And who are you?
I'm a simple storyteller, a simple traveler. But I have heard your stories. Oh, have I heard your stories? I am so excited to meet you.
Excited to meet you. Everyone's got stories. That's the point of this. Everyone's story gets told.
That's what they say about you. Is it true? Is it true that you met Wen?
Meet with? It's not just past tense. We're on a first name basis.
You know, the towns I've passed through, they say nothing but wonderful things about Rowan the Bard, the man of stories, the bearer of purple flames. I'm honestly just thrilled that I have come across your camp.
Well, I'm more thrilled than any. I'm always welcoming a story. Do you have one?
And he looks at you and says, I'm sure my stories are not as interesting as yours, friend, and all of these people, they're not gathered for mine.
Well, that's the thing.
They're gathered for yours.
We're gathered for all stories, big and small. So if you've got a story, I've got money, I've got food. Whatever you need, it's yours.
And so, he turns and he says, have you ever heard the one about Ashenwing, the fable maker?
Can't say that I have.
And he kind of looks towards everybody and says, then I have just the story for you. And the night goes on and he tells his story, and it's a story like one you've never heard, because most of the stories that you're brought are family stories or stories of folk and legend, and nothing ever sounds as real and as strange and as intimate as his does. And I think at the end of the night, you two are just chatting, and you part ways, and your normal thing is to like pay gold or food, and he's just taking neither. And I think at the end you insist, right? Like you insist that he takes some gold.
Sure.
And begrudgingly he does, and you'll later find the next day that he leaves it on one of the caravans. And you're telling yourself the same story you tell yourself each night over the purple flame, but the words are lost in the wind. And you hear the lute strum. And so when the lute plays, it shows you something different than it ever has before. The world around you, the caravans, the fire, this newcomer, they all vanish. And you find yourself standing in the center of a palace, in the center of this royal throne room, and you've never in your life seen anything like this. The culture on the walls looks different. The style of art, the clothes they wear, you've never in your life seen anything like this. It doesn't remind you of home. It doesn't remind you of Orenthal and some of the other continents you've been on in your life. And no matter your travels on the ship and with the pirates, you've never seen this level of luxury and this style of culture. But you recognize the tiefling on the throne. And you can hear conversations, and as you're walking closer, you realize that you didn't actually recognize him. You thought it was Kristoff, but you've never seen this tiefling before. But he wears this simple crown of ivory as he sits on this throne, and you're hearing muffled conversations, and behind you, you hear the familiar voice of Wen. And he says, "I appreciate everything you've done for me, Rowan."
I'd say with you. We're partners.
And he kind of chuckles, and his wings shake, and you can hear the rustling of like woods and leaves, and he says, "So stubborn, so insistent on that. I love this game we play."
As do I.
And you kind of hear the tension in his voice, and he says, "The time has come, Rowan. It's time you pay up that favor I need in exchange for everything I have bestowed upon you. It's time to collect." And he motions, and he's like standing behind you, right? And to your right. And so you kind of see his arm, his wooden foliage based arm, kind of reach out and point to the tiefling on the throne. And he says, "I'm going to need you to kill him. I'm going to need you to dispatch of Palace Shindo."
Interesting. I do have... Normally, I would argue this. This is interesting, though. Because I happen to be good friends with his brother.
And he kind of chuckles to himself and says, Of course. These are things I know, Rowan. And while Kristoff hates Palace, do you think he will really be okay with you murdering his family?
Yeah, probably.
Then what I ask of you should be easy. You should be able to accomplish it with little effort.
You say this. No, I would almost argue that we never agreed to me doing anything past making a great story.
And you can hear the groan like vibrate around you, And you've never, ever experienced any anger or tension or hatred when in Wen's realm or in any of his visions, really. And he says, I am no simple wench, barmaid, guard, shopkeep, or king, Rowan. Your fancy words and your verbal jujitsu means nothing to me. We had a deal. I saved you. I grant you my gifts. And when I come calling, you answer. If you choose to play games with me, games that I don't enjoy, and like you can feel like this pressure, and it's almost like gravity went up a notch, and it's harder to stand, and you can kind of feel your muscles pushing in. I will revoke our deal, and I will be done with you. I will take your life as quickly as I saved it. Because not all stories should be happy endings. But no one. And like as you try to interrupt him, he gets even angrier. No one will deny Wen his deal.
I agree on certain points. I would just like to sweeten the pot a little.
And as you kind of like say that, the pressure, the weight, the world, it dissipates. And Wen says, "Excellent. What did you have in mind?"
Well, seeing as how, by my understandings, you have legends.
I do.
As a being.
I grant legends powers, gifts, as long as they, much like yourself almost. But I wouldn't call you a legend quite yet, Rowan. Though you may call yourself that, and the stories of you may be grand, but yes, I have avatars of myself, legends in your world. What of them?
Well, the way I see it is I can do this and be the pauper that killed the prince. That sounds pretty legendary to me.
And he smiles and he says, what is it that you want, Rowan? Be clear.
Well, as I said before, I want to be a legend. I want the immortality that comes with it. Oh. I want to live long enough to see everything else perish. But know that I made it better for being here.
And you can feel Wen's smile. You don't see it because of his simple mask, but you can feel him smile. And he says, "Is it immortality you seek then, boy?"
Well, I think I was pretty clear. I want to almost be the untouchable, bro.
And he laughs and he says, "Do you want immortality through legend or life?"
Why not both?
You're not giving me enough for both, dear boy. In fact, you're simply holding up your end, but I do love a good story. So if it's immortality on this Goron, if you want to be a legend like others, I can make that happen. I would be so interested to see where your story goes.
Wouldn't it be interesting if I was the legend of all legends? Above all legends?
And he kind of leans down and he says, "You know, I don't think the others would like that very much."
But the drama of the story.
and he brings up this like wooden hand and with leaves and vines and like a couple flower petals, and he puts it to the chin of his mask and says, "I love everything about this, Rowan. But what is it you're going to do for me in exchange for... I have an idea. There's a wolf running around. His name is Etus.
Just a wolf?
Oh, yes. I'm sure you'll hear of Etus in the coming months. But I need you to kill him, Rowan.
Oh, easy peasy.
So, if you kill Pallas, I will grant you additional gifts. I will grant you the immortality you seek. But you must destroy Etus. And the quest I put you on, it is not a soft one. Because you see, it's not so simple to kill divinities.
You said he's a wolf. You didn't say he's a divinity.
Etus takes form of a wolf, but he is an entity, or a divinity, much like some of my children.
So I guess freezing razor blades in blood, letting lick his tongue off isn't gonna work.
Maybe not, but I would enjoy watching that.
Me too. Maybe that'll be plan A.
Then we have a deal.
Yeah, I'd say we've got a deal.
And he puts out his like wooden hand for you to shake it.
Oh, super shake it.
And when you
Full of bravado.
when you shake that, the world kind of disappears, and the image of Pallas falls away and Wen, and you're at this this fire again, and Brim, who was there telling you stories, is now gone, and everyone else is asleep, and the fire is still burning low. And when you kind of like look up, the world looks a little different. You can just feel it. It just feels different. And as you're kind of like pulling your hands up to, I think, like just kind of wipe your hands free of things, you notice on the bed of your nails, right? There's these little like gentle vines and like flowers kind of like poking forth from your skin on your left hand. And as you like scratch at them, they just fall away. But they that definitely is different for you.
Interesting. Alright. So I've gotten myself over my head. It's time to call the boys.
And as you're sitting there, you have this feeling that the first thing you need to do is to travel to Whisperwool, where the land of silence resides.
Guess, to appoint someone in charge of the caravan while I'm gone. And then take the caravan to the nearest dock. Get the merchants.
And as you're like mulling over that, I think you're like muttering other things that you need to check off your list and things you need to do before traveling to Whisperwool. And the camera like fades away and backwards into the sky, just showing this caravan and Rowan and this purple flame as he plots his next story. And that's where we're gonna end for episode 1 of, not episode 1, but season break of
Season break episode 1.
Yeah, there you go.
Interlude. Oh, the
interlude. Yeah, see, there we go. Interlude, episode 1. So yeah, man, that was good. I was more than a little excited that you bargained for more from Wen.
Oh yeah, how do you not? I mean, if you're already in that deep, just fucking... Yes, I will take another credit card, please. What is my limit? There isn't one? Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked for the boys to hear it and all our listeners, so it'll be super good. But unless you have anything you want to shout out to them, we're just going to wrap it up. It'll be quick and easy.
You know what? I think quick and easy. It's not usually what we do, but I think this time will be good.
It's not. So let's play them out in normal fashion. Bye!
Bye!